setting up. We should be going in a second. This is episode 188. Yep. So lots to talk about. We won't beat around the bush. Yeah, I can't think of anything else we have to cover. Red, you are recording?
Yes, sir.
All right. And Chillers and Kuze, confirm, please.
Confirm recording.
Excellent. I will be too. We've tweeted. We're good to go.
Okay. So if we're all good to go, I'm going to go. All right, going in 5. Hi, and welcome to the OotiniCast. Red 11 standing by. Red 5 standing by. Redna standing by. This is episode 188, being recorded on Wednesday, February 4th, 2015. I'm your host, Chill, along with our producer, Tio. Hi, Tio.
Hey, guys.
And with us today are Kuze and Red. So, Kuze, what you been up to?
Not too much. Lately, I was under the weather, similar to you, and kind of busy around the house and stuff. Took a trip to Pennsylvania and back. Bought a new vehicle, refinancing the house, all kinds of crazy stuff. So I've been a little busy. I did get rating in last week, and I'll let Tio go into it, but finally had my first full clear of Temple of Doom, as Max calls it. So that was a good time. I'm glad we finished that. Starting to get my set pieces.
What the?
This is not Bad Feelings Podcast, sir.
Let's cut that out. Starting to get my set pieces up, and went 2-piece, 4-piece. I finally got my 4-piece. Really, my 6-piece set bonus is really going to help me out with healing, since it has the cooldown for one of my normal healing abilities. But every time I think of these set pieces, I have like 2-piece, 6-piece. Now I'm waiting for like the chicken. I almost got a full bucket of chicken with 8-piece we'll have next. That'll be nice. But other than that, it hasn't been too much. So
all right,
that's it
awesome.
for me.
Red, how about you? Oh, can't hear you, Red.
How's that?
Much better.
Much
thanks.
better. Well, so I was definitely doing a lot of PvP, particularly after the show last week, and for the first couple days. I'd been sick, if you recall, for a day or two, so I missed my operation, but PvP was rocking it. Somebody ended up pointing out to me in my stream that since it's preseason, ranked doesn't matter. Just go in and get the gear. So I dove right in. It has been a lot of fun, actually. The queues popping all over the place. I'm really, really hoping that the rapid and consistent queues on the Bastion, at least, continue, and that it's not just an indication of everybody realizing the same thing, that they aren't jeopardizing ELO, so they can just get in there and get the ranked comms. But at this stage, at least, I'm hoping to be able to get to my full PvP set before the season starts on Tuesday.
Awesome.
I've been a little bit surprised, of course. I'm still focusing on my Commando for both PvP and PvE, and I'm surprised that the Commando's a little squishier than I expected, although I'm only about halfway there on the gear. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but it's just definitely a matter of learning how to maximize line of sight in certain locations on the arena maps and things like that. It's not unmanageable, just I feel like, man, I'm wearing this heavy armor, but it sure doesn't seem to matter that much compared to, say, a Scoundrel or a Sage. So, started my Scoundrel healer, I think this was on Saturday morning, because I had a friend who wanted to make a new 60 and had already done the Forged Alliances, so I figured, hey, I'll run through Forged Alliances and have this character ready to go level as soon as they get online. And then 6 hours later, I kind of hit 60. Oh well. The flip side being, yes, I now have all 3 healers on the pub side at level 60, so it's getting interesting.
Good stuff.
I was also in full 192s along with like my 198 offhand before the operations on Tuesday. Tuesday straight up knocked everything out of the park. It was remarkable. Full cleared Ravagers and Temple of Sacrifice through the walkers. one-shot literally everything in there. In fact, I think we only had one death, and it might have been because I got really cocky on one of the fights and wasn't paying attention and let somebody die. I still haven't been able to tell because I was not paying attention, so it might not have been my fault. But nevertheless, it felt good, man. It's remarkable how you take the walkers down once, and my operations group was just so spot on. It blew my mind. In fact, I was cheering them on and praising them so hardcore because straight up the healing was stupid. It was about both of the walkers were down to like 50% before anybody even took damage. Where I was just sitting there like, what am I supposed to do? Here's a sticky bomb. Here's a high impact bolt. Come on, I'm getting bored. And then finally, somebody got hit for like 25% of their health. I'm like, ooh, a heal. But it's fun. Now, really fun. I just love the operations group I'm in. We haven't had problems banging our heads against something for an hour and a half. People have not been getting discouraged, and then ironically, once we get it down once, it's like cakewalk going through. So I can't wait for this show actually later in the show notes, and I actually want to review some of the material, the tips and tricks that we've gotten for Underlurker over the last couple weeks, because I'm going to be handing that all over to our operations lead and hopefully knock out. We've got all Monday. We've got nothing else scheduled. Everything else is killed, so all Monday will be Lurker. And hopefully we can take it down and finish Temple of Sacrifice. But, yeah. Oh, the other really awesome thing was on Tuesday. I ended up getting... So I have had 0 set piece drops or items or anything. I've been losing all the rolls and everything. It's all been comm gear. And then on Tuesday, I ended up getting my headpiece, my implant, my ear. I got the mount off of the final boss on Ravagers.
Wow.
And... because I'd run it on my Sage before, that ended up being my 2-piece set bonus. So all of a sudden I went from having nothing to, wow, I don't need to get anything more for a while till our DPS is geared out.
Yeah. Slick.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
great week.
Sounds good. Tio, how about your week?
All right, let's start with rating, though. There was a tip I forgot to mention last week with the Korotani, the last boss in the Ravagers, in, story mode at least, probably hard mode as well. If anyone has a pet out, apparently this is the cause of a particular bug that when you go to the transition phase, as in when you've got her down to 10%, she runs off to the shuttle, and you're killing the chicken, normally when the group actually clicks on the shuttle, the follow-up, you would transition to that second area. If anyone's got a pet out, she'll actually reset back to full health with the chicken. So, yeah, not good. So don't do that. Just something he mentioned. Anyway, in our own rating, we were there both nights, Thursday, Friday, and we did the usual full clear of the Ravagers. I think it's getting faster every time, half an hour-ish. We cleared Temple of Sacrifice, again, story mode. That means Underlurker for the second time, this time with Chill and Kuze with us.
Yeah.
So that was the first time those guys got through it, and then, of course, the last 2 encounters are a joke, including Revan. Very disappointing. So that left us with...
Pretty, though.
Yeah, that last area is actually very cool. Now, that left us with plenty of time to work on one of the hard modes. We chose Malafar, the first boss in Temple of Sacrifice, since that's where we were. And we did not get him down, but we were definitely making progress. We were refining our strategy, particularly with the tanks. The problem with that fight is everyone, all the DPS and healers particularly, have lots to do in terms of managing their own stacks of a debuff that they get. The longer they stay in, the more damage they do from that stacking buff.
Right.
But it's also a debuff in that it will damage them as well, the higher it gets. So what they have to do is step outside to clear it. But then there's another debuff that you get when you're outside that will slowly increase the amount of damage and healing you do, which is suboptimal. So you must stay inside. You must step out occasionally to clear it.
But you can't. Yeah, but you can't let that debuff stack up too much.
Exactly. So it's a real challenge for everyone, in addition to doing DPS and healing. So from a tanking point of view, Turg and myself worked out a pretty good strat, so it is actually pretty easy for us now. And so now we just got to get through the rest of it. So this week we may try that again, or we may actually have a few good goes at Sparky, given the group's damage is actually certainly getting up there where we need it to be.
And I'm if anybody still has MSE6 downloaded, I'm actually using MSE6 during that hard mode fight to notify me when the debuff drops off and the other one is applied. That way I don't have to keep looking down to see if it's dropped off yet. I can just concentrate on the raid frames and healing. So I'll just get an audio tone that says, hey, it's dropped off, and then I just step right back into the circle. So if anybody out there still has MSE6, you can use it for that.
Cool.
Cool. In addition to that, did various things, helped out with Utini Knights and our Conquest just to get on the leaderboard. I just maxed out one character. It's pretty easy this week. Just did the Voss dailies a couple of times and crafted the rest of the way. However, it was mainly Bill who generated probably at least a third, probably closer to half of the guild's total all by himself. But
Wow.
that's just Bill. That's how he rolls.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, we did stay on the leaderboard, which was nice. Otherwise, some hard mode flashpoints, including yesterday. I finally got to do hard mode Manan again. It hadn't actually come up for a while since 3.0 came out. Sorry, since 3.0 point whatever came out. And so when the bonus bosses were enabled. So this was the first time I've actually got to do the bonus boss in Manan. That was the last one I needed. So with that, I've done them all now. So full clears of all of them, including all the bonus bosses. And that fight, that Manan bonus boss, really, really fun. It's just mechanically sophisticated. If you've never done it, the way it works is there are these, you're fighting the boss, which is fairly basically tank and spank. There is a debuff that he puts out which ticks down, and if the healer does not cleanse it in time, will stun them. So healer's got to be on their toes. But what makes it really fun are these droids that will spawn up one end of the room and slowly move down through the room as you're fighting. And they've got a big red circle around them. And if anyone actually steps into that circle, if they didn't have sex with it, the droid explodes and does a whole bunch of damage, AoE damage to anyone caught in it, which can wipe the group. And so the entire group has got to actually dodge these, keep moving back and forth to avoid the circles. And sometimes there are 3 droids in a line with all circles overlapping, and there's no room. So one of your DPS has got to run out and pop one of the droids in such a way that they don't die. So just catch the edge of the damage from one of them. Yeah, that was awesome. Awesome fun. We had a couple of fantastic DPS. He was RE tanking and me healing, and a couple of pug DPS who did a great job. We're going to talk more about the hard modes later in the show, if time permits. So we'll actually go through all the strats, at least for the normal modes, or at least for the non-bonus bosses.
Okay.
Anyway, that's pretty much it for me. How about you, Chill?
All right. First, a shout out to our chat rooms. Regular chat room has Belazar, DXUN, HK Chubbs, Mib XZ, I think that's a random name, Slager, Zamzam, Beware 2, Dekion, Ferris Terran, Ganglotron, Pez, and Trigil. And in the Twitch chat room, hosted by Red, MagV3, Memo8973, Beware 2 is there as well, Spencer, Diana, and Noctease. So hello everyone. I did a fair bit of PvP this week. I'm still basically kind of struggling to overcome my illness from last week, just in terms of sort of loss of energy. Felt very tired a lot of the time. But once I got it rolling, it was still a lot of fun. I already had the full basic PvP set. I'm starting to work on the advanced gear, but I might have to try some ranked, see if that's popping on the Harbinger, because it is going slowly. I enjoyed a couple of war zones with Fashionista, who happened to be queuing at the time, so that was cool. And I also tried the new lame slot machine on the guild ship. It took me 2.5 stacks of tokens to get to legend status with the reputation that you get, and I basically got nothing else. I got exactly one green Jawa junk and 1 cartel certificate. That's all I got out of that, other than reputation items. And yeah, so I do have I got to legend status, so I guess now if I can manage to get 10 certificates, I can get like the Sitel Shan hollow statue, or something, but I don't have enough for anything really exciting yet. So yeah, so I got my main hand advanced PvP item, and I'm just keeping on working on that. So we'll see how it goes. And that's all I really did. I mean, other than the operations. So we'll just move on to the tip of the week. We've got 5 tips this week. I'll start us off here. Reinke of the Shadowlands and the Harbinger wrote, "Don't trash your inheritance and birthright gear, it is worth some credits. I save all mine on a leveling alt, and then during Bounty Hunter event, when I'm on my capital planet, on leveling characters anyway, the Bounty Hunter event is good experience, I turn it in and send it to an alt so that the timer expires immediately. The items can be vendored by that alt. Inheritance gear goes for about 800 to 1,000 credits, and birthright gear goes for 3,000 or 4,000 credits per piece."
All right. Our second tip is from Sabo. "This is a useful tip for anyone who is frustrated with a Korotani fight bug. A good indicator of whether your fight will be bugged is based on the entrance of the room where the fight begins. The door should be blue, indicating you must click on it to begin a cutscene. If you can enter the room without being required to click on the door, your fight will likely be bugged.
Right.
Our ops group usually sends a stealther ahead to check the door, and if it is indeed bugged, we all exit the instance and the raid leader restarts a phase. This saves you from having to kill all the mobs up to the door, and there are quite a few of them, only to discover that you must restart the instance and kill them again. Also, your stealther may aggro mobs in his pursuit, so have your other raid members stay on guard. The stealther can vanish, and the aggroed mobs will head straight to everyone else." Now, I should note that we have done the Korotani fight bug with some people finding the door not present. I think some people did find it present, and the fight works just fine. We have never had a repetition of that bug since we get the whole group to stop attacking her as soon as she starts running towards the shuttle,
Right.
or the escape pod, or whatever it is. So as long as you do that, as long as your DPS is aware and actually stop firing at her, it seems to work okay, whether the door is there or not. But if you want to be extra careful, yeah, do what he says.
All right. Third tip from Tim Rogan. My tip is on the Underlurker. On his right side, there is a pattern of lights which isn't on the left side. So this helps orientate those who need to go to the sides. That would be for the cross mechanic.
Yeah, if you can't tell your left from your right. Yes, this had come up in a Rioters run. I think Chong was pointing out the difference between the two arms. Whatever works for you.
You got to figure out You got to figure out something, because in many ways he does look the same from all angles. He's just the big tree, mushroom-looking rock thing, whatever. Yeah, I kind of go by his lean. He kind of leans forward, so I can tell which way to go by which way he's leaning. That's how I do it.
Maybe it's just because I'm scrolled out further. But I don't know. Whatever way, it always seems fairly obvious whether I'm DPSing, healing, or tanking. And I've done all 3 roles on that. Alright, our fourth tip is from Cap Slapshot 27. This was a fairly long one, and he's actually got a list of tips for the Underlurker. So we'll just step through it and just reference our own experience as well, because it is a bit of a fight, and actually is well and truly the toughest fight in Templar's Sacrifice story mode. One could say overtuned, at least relative to the other fights. Even Bulo is quite easy, especially now compared to Underlurker. Bulo from Ravagers compared to this. Anyway, alright, so he says, for those of you that have less experience on fighting Underlurker, here are some easy tips to follow to improve your group's progress on killing him. Pop raid buffs when DPS jump in initially. Underlurker has a 4-minute 50-second enrage, but the enrage doesn't hit as hard as you would expect. It hits pretty hard, but I'm pretty sure we've reached that and still killed him. If you're lucky, you can get 2 sets of raid buffs on the boss. Now, we tried this with the walkers, actually. As soon as everyone comes in, you pop that. He also suggests if your commando pops their alacrity buff, there'll be an actual shorter cooldown on all the other raid buffs. I don't know if that's true, but it's interesting.
If they're popped within that time frame while the alacrity's up, that should work, actually.
Increasing the cooldown.
That's how they changed alacrity. Is one of the ways is you're supposed to get faster cooldowns based on the alacrity that you have when you use your cooldown.
That's a good trick, actually. If that works, we'll have to test that. Yeah, so basically you do all your your Sentinel / Marauder, etc., and your Sage / Sork ones up front, and then you can do them again right when you're actually reaching rage, because they should be off cooldown. Or the debuff has actually expired, so you can actually pop them again. So that's one thing you can do, just to maximize your DPS, and it is a DPS intense encounter. Easy way to tell if your group has enough DPS is that the boss should be nearly 80% by the time the first set of ads spawn. If your group is more than 5% off this target, you should focus on increasing your group's damage output. And he says when the waves spawn, but I'll actually include all of his notes in the show notes so you can go through it in detail. When the DPS are attacking the ads, have the whole group, minus the main tank, who should be off somewhere else, behind the ad you are attacking. Then when ad 1 is down, move behind the next ad. This will minimize damage done to the group. Well, as we discovered, as long as your off tank is tanking the ad, your group can more or less stand where it likes. Just make sure your range and healers are not standing anywhere within melee range of the other under the lurkerlings. That is critical.
Right.
I talked about that last week. DPS should all be attacking the same ad and know what order. Again, that really only matters because firstly it will reduce the overall damage output since each of the lurkerlings is doing AoE damage to everyone. So you take one down, you've reduced the damage by a third. Also, the tank, especially for the melee, must hold aggro. So if your melee are attacking any which way, that makes it awkward.
Yeah, if you're a DPS and you notice that it's attacking you, use threat dump immediately.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. He also suggests the order to attack, but just let your off-tank pick it, basically, and follow them.
The other thing that a lot of people tend to forget is that when you make sure that you're all on the same ad one at a time, although it seems like just a naturally good idea, it also helps you get below 30% for those classes that have extra abilities that arrive. Yeah, executes and such. So it really is a good idea to be working together.
Yes. And your healers will love you, basically. Try to have the whole group, minus the main tank, stand behind one rock or two rocks close together, and the main tank standing behind a rock on the other side of the room. This will allow people to predict the orientation of the cross mechanic, because the boss will jump to someone, usually not the tank, and then we'll move back towards the tank. Now, the way we did this, we had the group behind one rock. Ideally, I, as a main tank, did not get behind a rock. You just don't take that much damage from Rage Storm. It's trivial for the tank. And just kept away from the group and oriented myself towards the center of the room so that the guys knew where I would be. So that made it quite simple, actually. And when we were doing the Underlurker, it's consistently green crosses. So it's just not that hard to orient.
I think we did have one orange the last time that we did it.
We had that one. One was green and red. It was very strange.
So it's kind of an orangish color.
Yeah.
It turns out to be. It's weird.
Who knows what the hell that meant? He suggested the thing where you mark 3 players, like in one group, who are going to go on the left arm with raid markers, in the other group without the markers, so you can sort of help orient yourself accordingly. Again, if you can tell your left from your right, you're golden, but we've seen that this can be problematic. Something that can happen is your client can get desynced from the server, so where you think is the middle of that cross arm isn't. So we had that with Bill. He thought he was dead center and everyone else wasn't. It turned out he was the one who was actually out. So if like 2 of the guys are standing apparently off to the side, maybe they're right, and maybe your client has got a little bit confused and you should go and stand with them, even if it seems off. Jumping when you get in the cross is a good idea too, as Brett said previously. Just to convince the server you are where you think you are, especially if you use the speed boost to get there, because that can kind of seem to muck things up.
Did you still run into some of these bugs, like it looking different this week after the last patch?
No.
Okay, because we actually thought that we were getting some bugs. This is the first time we spent a lot of time on it. And we thought we were getting bugs until we just realized that once we got our body positioning right, those bugs seemed to have vanished. They weren't really bugs. We were just misunderstanding mechanics.
It's definitely been way more consistent, but if we're getting a green and red at the same time, then something is still slightly off. So that doesn't mean that even with the other raids that we did in the past in Dread Palace, sometimes a client would get it would get messed up somehow. The floor panel would be dropped off or whatever. So just because we didn't experience this last time doesn't mean that it's not necessarily happening.
There are some further bug fixes to this fight in 3.1, which is being deployed on Tuesday. So clearly it's not quite completely fixed. So something can, as we experienced. But for the most part, it was working just fine. Certainly better than it was previously. All right, just finishing it off. If your group has a Vanguard as a tank, as we do, use Riot Gas right before he channels Rage Storm. Makes a significant amount of the damage dealt by Rage Storm miss anyone struggling to get behind a rock. Yes, we did that consistently whenever, for whatever reason, we were caught out of position, especially in that final phase where you're doing your burn after the first 4 waves.
Right.
The tank on the boss should stay away from the ads, as they will take an added amount of damage, which will be difficult for the healers. That's true, but the main tank on the boss should not be standing near a lurkling, because why get beaten up when there's no need to be? There'll be 5 sets of ads, 5 collapsed rage storms, and 5 crosses that you'll have to deal with before the boss enrages. So that's why, as we talked about last week, Custer's recommendation, skip that 5th group of ads. As soon as the 4th ads are down, you do your cross, and you're just burning the boss from that point forward. You ignore the ads. You still probably have to do 1 more cross, but yeah, and don't get hit by the falling rocks. If your group is having a bit of trouble DPSing the boss, off-tank can switch to DPS, as 2 tanks are not a necessity on this boss. Now, we tried that, Turg did, but it turned out that he really needed the tank stance and gear to deal with the damage from the lurklings, which he was tanking.
Right.
So, yeah, your mileage may vary on that. But yeah, in the cross phase, as we also discovered, it's really a guide, those symbols. So it doesn't matter. As long as you've got 3 on each side and 1 front and behind, doesn't matter what role they are. Basically,
Right.
though, the main tank will be the one in front, because that's where the boss it will head towards him, because he's the one who has aggro. And finally, last tip is more of a check. This is a recommendation of what your group stats should be for clearing the boss, and I'll include those in the show notes. But in summary, your tank mitigation rating of 3400, which is just adding up your shield, absorb, and defense. Doesn't matter about the off tank. Both tanks should be pulling close to 1400 DPS. No chance. Each DPS pulling 3500 on the dummy, and healers with gear rating of 9200 plus. Now, guild totals this number as main stat, plus power, plus crit, plus surge, plus alacrity, plus force power, or tech power, which should be roughly a 186 gear, you would assume.
This is the first I've ever heard of a healer gear rating. I'm going to have to go see how I measure up.
It's kind of arbitrary, I suspect, but it's a gauge. Health is another one, because that will reflect the stats of the rest of your gear, assuming you have the good gear.
Although as soon as you started getting... I noticed actually some of the people in our group have lost quite a bit of health now that we've been getting those token drops, because they now actually have valuable stats.
Right, instead of endurance.
I also thought it was fairly intriguing now that the augments have gotten so high in value. I have more health than our most geared tank right now, because his endurance has decreased and he has no health on his augments.
Yeah.
You know. So
That
Yeah,
seems
I have-
weird.
I have the highest health in our raid group as well. Even
yeah, it's really
compared
odd,
to the
but I
two
think
tanks.
Are we ready for the 5th tip?
I think we are.
All right.
I had one more. Had one more go. Sorry. Which we didn't mention was check your utilities, and you might need to switch them out for that fight.
Right.
Especially for the troopers, they have a 30% mitigation to AOE. So I can stand out in the rage storm, and it barely does anything to me. So check your utilities as well.
Yep, excellent tip for Guardians and Juggernauts. You probably have this anyway. Your tanks, make sure you've got your AoE taunt also puts out the absorb shield, because that also helps in that.
And Sentinels have a 30% AoE
Right.
reduction as well.
Yep.
I think that's one of the ones I normally keep, though. All right. 5th tip from Nightmare of Prophecy of the Five. And just a quick note to Nightmare. This tip came in quite late. We had already made a random choice, so your tip will actually go in for next week's random allotment. But it's a good tip, so we're going to go ahead and read it right away. I don't know why this works, but if you find yourself loading onto the fleet and being stuck on the shuttle, dismiss your companion and then do a /duck command. It seems to work for me, and it's a lot faster than logging off.
I'm still going to try this the next time it happens. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. All right, by random allotment, the winner is Cap Slapshot 27. Cap Slapshot 27, you have won a Tonfon or M8R3 droid pet code, courtesy of BioWare, and a new OotiniCast provided cartel market pack from the latest shipment. If you'd like a chance to win the same, please send your tips to OotiniCast@gmail.com by next Wednesday. And that will bring us to the holofeed. Tio?
Let's start with a public service announcement from Red regarding last week.
Yeah, I was actually really excited because I was thinking maybe we had gotten scooped. Several of the other members of the community have been reporting on 2 new expansions coming out next week, and so I tried to track down where this actually came from, and it looks like it might have just been a typo from a certain source. It doesn't seem, haven't been able to find, credited or uncredited, an actual source for it being expansions as opposed to what we had reported on last week, which is that there are 2 major updates coming out, which speculation is that those are, continuation of the primary story that we have now with Shadows of Revenant going forward. So I was hoping that it really was legitimately some news about expansions that somebody might have asked one of the devs directly, but haven't been able to verify that at all. Although anybody that's listening, if you did hear that, did ask a dev and they actually said that we might have expansions, say even a paid expansion at the end of the year, that would be very good to know so that we can verify it too.
Yeah, when in the producer's letter, as you're saying, it was 2 updates, and that's what we read out. And yeah, I would expect the paid expansion sometime around the release of the movie, Episode 7, but who knows? They certainly have not said that in any respect. And an expansion also means increase in the level cap, typically, the story expansions, which we'll also have to pay for. So, yeah,
well, and I think it's important because BioWare did previously make it very clear. We had always wondered, well, we had been wondering for a while, why is GSF considered an expansion when there's no level increase and there isn't money involved or anything? And maybe it was Damien Schubert or one of them anyway had told us their definition of an expansion, and the way that they use the word, is when it introduces a significant change or addition to content such that gaming review websites and companies should investigate their game and have a lot more information to share about its growth as a game and its expansion as a game. Whereas updates, daily areas, flashpoints, these things are just updates, not expansions.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think you guys said on the podcast a long time ago about the definition of expansion, and somebody had mentioned that if it introduces an entirely new aspect of the game, similar to what you're talking about, Red, then technically it kind of is an expansion. It expanded on to the game, into a different, not necessarily a different direction, but added, a different line of gameplay for somebody to do. So
a different dimension, if you will,
Yeah.
as opposed to the story dimension, the level cap dimension, the system dimension, whatever. All right, let's move on. Now, we're going to talk about that exploit one more time, final time, never going to come up again. Eric Musco, the day after we recorded our last show, did put a post on the forums talking about the actions that would be taken against the exploiters. And he went into some detail. So the actions have begun, and there are the types of actions will be based on the severity, and receive a warning with anywhere between 1 to 7 days of in-game suspension time, which you'd also lose your forum access during that time. For the most egregious offenders, that's the word of the week, they will have received a suspension up to a permanent ban. So at least some players have got 1 to 7 days suspensions, and some have been banned completely. And inside of those categories, also possible they could have specific actions such as removing inappropriately obtained high-end gear and crafting materials, and removal of credits and commendations. And we know that one of the gameplay aspects from this exploit was an influx of crafters being able to make items which they reverse engineered from ill-gotten gains. Any player exploited and gained a crafting pattern is likely to see that pattern removed. Now, in terms of the actual execution of this, people have been fairly open about talking about it on Reddit. I won't go into detail, but let's just say BioWare typically were fairly light on the punishment. However, they do, in terms of most people just receive one-day suspensions. It seems very few people actually lost any gear and crafting materials, and so schematics were certainly removed, that's for sure. But for most, it was a one-day ban. Of course, for the people who actually were most egregious, presumably they did get their permanent bans, etc. They included a copy of the email or template that would be sent out to people. Now, the most important part from Musco was he said, "We didn't take these actions lightly and reviewed every account to determine where we could be lenient. From our end, this was a no-win situation. We feel responsible for allowing the exploit to occur and remain in the game for an unreasonable length of time, but we also cannot and will not condone cheating. Thankfully, a large majority of players didn't exploit at all, but unfortunately, some of those who did have been with us for a long time. Even all the way back to launch, it breaks our hearts to see a few of those loyal players partake in the exploit. Still, it would be unfair to not punish those players, and so we had to take action." He goes on to say they've learned some valuable lessons this past month or so, hopeful to catch these types of situations long before they get released or very quickly thereafter. Yeah, that would be fantastic. So, yeah, basically they're accepting their place in this, and thus the punishments dealt were not as probably severe as they could have been, but that's at this time. This is not an indication of what they'll do next time, particularly if you were flagged as having utilized the exploit this time, even if you got away with it because you didn't use it enough to even get the one-day suspension. They know that you did it. It's probably noted in your record, so I would expect, even though he doesn't say this, they would be more harsh the next time it happens. So
yeah, and when I talked to Musco at the community cantina, that was pretty much his attitude, was that they were going to be a little bit lenient this time because they did feel a certain burden of responsibility in the length of time it took to address it or even remove it as a problem, and because there'd never been this line drawn in the sand or anything. But it did seem like if this happens again, they aren't going to feel any kind of responsible, and they will full punish.
yes, good. As it should be, honestly. If you cheat, you should get punished. It's just the way it is.
I think all the people that didn't participate should receive some sort of cartel coin compensation. I'm sure Hip would agree as well.
Oh,
That's right.
sure he would.
I definitely need that, no question.
And Turk says they should just wait until the Harbinger crashes again and call it a server-wide suspension. Yeah, well, anyway.
And they haven't
Alright, so-
compensated for those either, so...
Yeah. Alright, and that's the exploit. No more. Next, speaking of exploiting, so to speak, PvP win trading. Now, as we know, Season 4 will be soon upon us, with Game Update 3.1 coming on this coming Tuesday. And Musco says... he's basically defining the rules of engagement and how we plan to keep it fair and fun for everyone who participates in ranked PvP in the war zones, or the arenas. What it boils down to is they're going to try to identify people who are win trading. That is, deliberately taking it in turns to win to boost each other's ratings. What they're going to do is review the data every week. Now, prior to this, they'd done it at the end of the season, and thus it was just a lot harder to identify who was actually doing this. If they're doing it every week, they can catch the people who are cheating.
Okay.
And the punishments will be a warning if they've done it, and if they do it again, they could... the next time, they will either lose their rating, any seasonal rewards, or something more severe, suspension or ban, or whatever. So, and he actually can go further. Reset on that particular character, on all characters have their ratings reset on the account. So, could get
Which
nasty.
makes a lot of sense, because from what I understand, when people do the win trading, what they'll do is they'll have their one character that they sync against their friend on the other faction,
Yep.
and lose and lose and lose and lose, and then they swap
Yep.
places, and then they got their main that wins and wins and wins with no detriment. So yeah, totally makes sense that you do it for the whole account.
Yeah.
Now, the problem, of course, is identifying who's win trading, and some people brought up some obvious problems with it, and Musco explained how they're going to try and avoid messing it up, and they're probably going to be real careful with this. And what about people who are queue syncing? Because that's not win trading. That's queuing at the same time with a friend in the solo queue, hoping you get in together, leaving matches if you don't, that kind of thing. So if there's not many people participating, yeah, it all gets a bit ugly. So this is one step, because win trading is just a thing and really shouldn't be. It sounds like it won't be, but there are other issues which need to be dealt with. And their solution to no cross-server, or better than cross-server, maybe we'll address that by making the population bigger. So anyway, that will all start with Season 4 starting on Tuesday. We had a weekly update. This is coming from Courtney Wood, sending out to all the fan sites. They're doing these weekly spotlights now. This week is Darth Mar. They'll be doing character-driven themed weeks, featuring some of the major figures from the Shadow of Revan, posting story blogs and stuff, so look out for that. And the other thing to note is Cantina details for this year. I will include this in our show notes. There'll probably be a post on the forums sooner or later, but they've pretty much confirmed that the next Cantina will be in Boston with PAX East, and that will probably be at the Hyatt Grand Regency on March the 7th, but not final, so don't make any travel plans until you hear for sure. And for the rest of the year, just quickly running through it, in April, Star Wars Celebration. So
That's
I know
cool.
Bill was hoping to go, so yeah, it should be huge this year, of course, with Episode 7 coming out and everything happening in Star Wars, so wonderful.
Yeah, and there's a
good that they're there anyway.
lot of very famous Star Wars actors and actresses that are going to be there for the first time this year. It's going to be
You'd
crazy.
hope so. Yep. The San Diego Comic-Con in July, Gamescom in Europe in August, and I had a email from, I heard from Charlie Kranitoko, who said he'd contacted them about Spyware about when are they going to go to the UK, and she said that she'd love to, well, because that would be awesome, but they could only afford to go to Europe once. So this time they chose Gamescom, which is in Germany.
Is that the Germany one?
Again,
They've done
like
that one
the third
before,
time.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in August. Maybe next year they can do one in the UK. So I'm sure there's at least one gaming convention there, probably more, if I recall correctly.
Can't remember what it's called, but there definitely is a pretty big one there.
And finally, PAX Prime in September. That's the one on the West Coast. And New York Comic Con in October. So far, that's what we know.
Now, can
Alright.
I just point out one glaring exception? There's one distinct pattern that rises throughout all of these, which is they just went to PAX South. They're next going to PAX East. They're much later in the year going to PAX Prime. Where's PAX Australia?
Where is PAX Australia? Yeah, good point.
I mean, come on, you might as well finish the circuit.
Indeed, though if they're not going to Europe, the chances are they're not coming to Australia either. It's not like we got servers here anymore.
You know, Musco's really small. I bet you could fit him and get like a child's discount or something.
You'd hope so. Yeah.
Damn.
Oh well. Fingers crossed they'll eventually make their way to Australia. Anyway, next, Game Update 3.1. We've heard pretty much all about it by now, but it's now got some marketing material behind it, a nice big page talking about what's in it. It's got a name, Conflict on Rishi, Game Update 3.1, Conflict on Rishi. Though it's unclear what exactly those conflicts are, except for the new hard mode versions of Blood Hunt and the Battle of Rishi, the two current tacticals. I guess there you go. There's your conflict. And also in 3.1, as we've already mentioned, PvP Season 4. They talk about a few other things, command walkers that you get from somewhere or other, Massassi gear set, some more decos. They sound kind of cool. But really nothing that new. Unless I missed something. Now, we also have a preliminary version of the patch notes, and Tate Watson went to great pains to make it clear that these are preliminary. Do not take them 100% seriously if a particular bug fix disappears. So they are subject to change. So let's just quickly run through them because there are some good stuff in here. In fact, the other new thing that we know about now is that the GRI event is indeed returning on February 24th. And we'll be here for a week. So that's Feb 24th.
I know exactly what I'm doing on all 19 of my 55 or above.
We need to farm up those grey Helix components. Maybe it just means you will come back more often. Exactly. Also, just a reminder, Legacy Unlock, improved mounting, now Legacy-wide. Definitely worth getting. 400 cartel coins, 2 million credits. Just buy it. There's no reason not to, and it's awesome. Alright, so just quickly running through the notes. This was a note. We found out about this last week as well. Ship droids can now equip one-handed blaster pistols in their main hand. Currently, previously, they had not been able to actually equip a weapon, so if you want to use your droid as your healer, knock yourself out.
Okay.
They fixed up the missing exits for the guild flagships, which, as it turns out, is mainly on the Republic side. For example, you can't put the Rishi one in Raiders Cove, the main starting area, or on the Republic side, but you can on the Empire side, so we'll fix all that. Sounds like there was a bit of a bug with resetting utility points. That's interesting. But anyway, that is fixed as well. Just running through it, the interesting ones. We got the class and combat changes. Now, as we know, it is only the tanking tree for the Jedi Knight and the tanking discipline for the Jedi Knight and Jug, and the tanking discipline for the Consular, for the Shadow and Assassin. And it's all mostly a damage buff, particularly for Guardians and Jugs. They had a change, if I remember, on the PTS. It would actually reduce the threat from your force sweep. It looks like they've taken that away again. And it's all basically a damage buff, and Riposte is off the global cooldown again. It had been back on with 3.0. So Guardians and Jug tanks will win, and a bit of a damage boost for Shadow and Assassin tanks as well, but not as much so. But I know those guys do great damage at the moment.
Yeah, I'm thinking my next PvPer might be a Shadow tank, because they do so much damage anyway.
Alright, flashpoints and operations. As we mentioned, Temple of Sacrifice, the Underlurker, has received a couple of more tweaks to the whole devastation mechanic. Some people are getting out of range errors, and presumably when something desyncs. We haven't seen that since they fixed it. And Malafar the Savage now allows a grace period before using Frustrated Howl.
Oh, good. Good.
I don't recall if we talked about this last week, but as we saw for ourselves, if the main aggro target, once the boss is below 80%, moves out of melee range, the group insta-wipes. That is the Frustrated Howl. And we did trigger that at least once, where I think I was a little bit too quick about moving away before Turg had actually got in there when we did a tank swap. Yeah, that was not good. Anyway, they are now allowing a grace period, so at least you've got a bit more time. So as soon as the tank moves out of melee range, he isn't going to just kill the group if the other tank hasn't actually jumped in. So that's fantastic.
Perfect.
Yep. A few tweaks for the Ravagers. The repair droids, which seem to die only too easily in story mode, now have more health. The damage of Torque's floor vents. This is the third encounter in the Ravagers. The kind of easy one in that really small little room in 16 man. The floor vents will do less damage because it's really easy to fry your whole group in there. And the shoots lasers droids now more accurately target and destroy repair droids. Not sure what they were doing otherwise. Were they targeting players?
They could target one another on accident, I believe.
That's pretty funny.
That'd be awesome.
No, I had a repair droid attacking me last time.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Now they're going to focus on the actual. Well, this is. Yeah. Okay. So.
You know, I never realized how easy the Shoes lasers was to kill until this last time. We just decided to ignore them all and just burn the boss as fast as possible. And my healing wasn't having that much trouble, so I just decided to throw a sticky bomb and a high impact bolt at it. Yeah, I killed it.
Yeah.
Those things
It's
die
only bad if they're
easy.
ignored. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that much in story mode anyway. Now, in Flashpoints, this is in Manan, hard mode, the bonus boss, the M2 AUX Foreman, the demolition probes. Now, I just talked about that earlier, the probes with a big red circle around them, that if you run into the circle, the droid explodes. Apparently, the damage was exploding from the player rather than the droid itself, so they're fixing it so it's the actual droid. So I did wonder why that killed us all when someone just entered the circle. And so anyway, that will work more reliably. Items and economy, they did finally fix up the mats for dark projects. So self-perpetuating power cells have replaced the synthetic energy matrix again. Let's hope they actually sticks this time. Bill will be pleased because he did exhaust his supply of synthetic energy matrices. So now we can go back to extorting the world on the other stuff. Now they fixed up, it looks like the 192 companion gear you get from the weekly on Yavin 4, Spirit of Cooperation, I believe it is. And they've adjusted the stats on some of the companion gear as well. Some of it was a bit skewy.
Okay.
Small thing, Kurtob Alliance Speeder, that's the speeder you get for Refer a Friend. In the list for your decos, when you are trying to decorate your stronghold, its icon had disappeared and its name and the actual animation for it in the preview window was all screwed up. That is all fixed. So if you want to use that in your stronghold, that should all be good. Oh, and missions, the weekly for Ravagers and Templar Sacrifice are now shareable. So not everyone has to pick up them from the actual console, which is only really a pain at the Ravagers because the console to pick them up right near the shuttle if you've forgotten to pick it up previously on the fleet or whatever. So now you can actually share it.
I didn't have the heart to tell my ops group that I forgot to pick it up this week.
Yeah. In Warzone's Hutball, fire trap damage is no longer mitigated by damage reduction for level 55 plus characters, effectively reducing the number of hits required to kill a player. So now the fire hurts again in Hutball, as it should, if you're 55 plus. Now, something that isn't in the patch notes, but they did mention last week, the heroic moment bug, where the cooldown isn't being reduced by your legacy bonuses, is apparently fixed in 3.1 but not finalized. So if it's in the patch notes in 3.1, it got in there. Otherwise, not so much.
Okay.
Codex and achievements. This is just a separate couple of posts from Tate. He knows that they're still bugged and there are issues with them. He is working through them. It's his personal crusade, as you talked about before, but it is prioritized down because there are higher priority issues that need to be addressed. But they haven't forgotten. They are working on them. Not life achievements. So, yeah, don't panic. They haven't forgotten it. Speaking of Tate...
Frankly, I'm okay on them delaying some of those bugs as they fix some of these boss issues.
Yeah. As long as they get there eventually, all good.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of bugs and Tate, he's updated the posts that explain what you do about bugs in the bug report forum. I'll just link to them. Just some standard things to do when you actually post. For example, as we talked about before, if you found an exploit, do not put it in the bug forum. Just /bug it, PM them on the forums. Do not post it for other players to see, or they'll be deleted, basically. And also, don't try and reproduce exploits. Just describe what you saw. That'll do. They'll take care of the rest. He also has a thread on how to write, in his words, let's talk a little bit about how you can make your bug reports the best damn bug reports they can be. The better the report, the faster we can investigate it. So here are some things you can do to help. And yeah, read the guidelines. Screenshots are great. You can't actually post them right now. They're going to try and fix that directly. If not, use a service like imager.com, imgur.com. It's very easy and quick, and you just post in the links to that. And provide as much information. Remember, the devs have to reproduce the bugs. They're not going to just believe you. Describe it with enough detail to let them reproduce it, and that will really help. Now, if you have a game crash or a graphics issue, include your DXDiag, which is a utility included with DirectX. Should be on any Windows PC. And he explains how to actually do that as well. So yeah, any information you can provide the devs, the more the better. Don't just assume they've got some other magic way of extracting it. Being a software developer and having dealt with bug reports, even from your QA department, should know better. The more detail, the better in reproducing bugs.
The irony being, don't duplicate it and know for sure exactly what you did in all the details possible. Just make up all the details possible, even if you're not at all sure it has anything to do with it.
More information is better than less information. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, I'd be more apt to do it again just to make sure I knew the exact sequence of what I went through so that I could accurately report the thing and just say, hey, listen, I did this twice to be sure. You can go ahead and do something to me. I want it actually dealt with.
I know a lot of people report bugs, but I think I get in the mindset sometimes of, oh, I'm sure other people have reported it. It'll be fine. They'll take care of it, you know. And I don't take the time out to do that. So
there was at least one example. I remember Eric was telling me about this, where something got through, went live, but it turned out no one had actually reported it. So they literally did not know, because even though it was kind of well known in the community, no one has bugged it. And so, yeah, that's not necessarily a safe assumption, depending on the bug. All right, let's just quickly run over some community stuff. A couple of podcasts you may want to add to your rotation. From Marshall Carr, who's been on the show a couple of times, and his friend Will, The Usual Podcast, aren't on iTunes yet, but probably will be soon. We'll include the link at least to their site and the RSS feed. So you can actually subscribe right now. They talk about SWTOR, bit of SWTOR, bit of general Star Wars, being Star Wars nerds, as are we all, and some just general pop culture. So listen to the first episode, pretty good stuff. Also, Casual Core Radio with Drew, that's spelled Arian, and Joe Foreign. So you may remember Drew from Corellian Run Radio, and Joe Foreign was on there a couple of times too. This is a general gaming podcast. They do talk about the games they're playing, which does include SWTOR, both of them at the moment, but other games as well. A few episodes, I think they're up to episode 3 or 4. Excellent, really good discussion just on general gaming, so I'd recommend them both. A news site, SWTOReconomics.com. He's a blogger, sounds like a real economist who has actually turned his expertise to helping people figure stuff out in SWTOR. He sounds like him and Bill would get on pretty well, but anyway, we'll be talking to him in an interview sometime soon.
Very cool. Yeah.
Swordorista of swordorista.com, who we've interviewed previously, she has put together a imager gallery that has a whole lot of pictures of pets in the game that are hard to get and how to get to them, mostly referencing Dolphy's guides, but there's also some others that aren't in those guides, and it's a nice collection, so you can actually see the pets and find out how to go about getting them. There's quite a few I never even knew existed, so yeah, that's definitely worth checking out. Also, quite a lot of stuff in community this week. There is a new site for doing online analysis of combat logs called Parsley. It's by Marissi of Zors, which is one of the top progression guilds in the game. Our friend Justin has actually recently joined them. And yeah, I'll link to the post that describes it. I've tried it out quickly. It's pretty solid. This kind of currently fills the void that Torpars did actually is supposed to be coming back, but hasn't yet. They're apparently getting close, but they've been getting close for months now. So in the meantime, I'll link to that. Parsley, another online combat parser. Finally, a quick shout out to Udonzo, Guildmaster of the Sith Praxium and Jedi Praxium guilds on the Beggarin Colony server. You can find out more about them at sithpraxium.engine.com. He just replied to the thread on the official forums about our show where I post every episode. He's working through our backlog. He's currently up to show 110. Listens to a couple of 2 or 3 shows per day, so he should get up to later shows sometime soon. So good luck with that. That's a lot of listening.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the news.
Yeah, when you get here, hello.
I'm thinking back to some of the past audio for Kuze's Corner that I put in. Might not have been the most ear-pleasant thing to listen to. So, sorry.
Fine. Crowd favorite.
You can edit it out later, but I did actually get an email address and have heard that there is interest from the head of Torparse wants to do an interview with me. So.
You should do that.
Yeah, I forgot
He's
to
also
mention
the
it
head
before
of
the
the
show.
community, I believe.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, that'll bring us to the Force feedback where we read out your tweets and emails. And chat room, if you have any questions to ask, we'll be gathering them now to ask when we're done with the feedback. Let's see. First one from Turg. Ever wonder where the name Wookiee came from? Per the IMDb for Terry McGovern. When he was doing voiceover work on THX 1138 for George Lucas, he made a blunder and exclaimed, "I think I ran over a Wookiee back there." Lucas, confused, asked what he meant by the term. McGovern admitted that he didn't know and that he simply made it up. Lucas never forgot the cute word and immortalized it years later in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
Wow. That's so cool.
That's funny. Fun fact, his son was my roommate in college. That's cool. I knew his dad worked with Lucas, including ADR for Stormtroopers and etc. in A New Hope, uncredited, and later voiceover work for Star Wars video games, but I hadn't heard the Wookiee story. That's very cool. Let's see. Why are advanced class icon colors reversed for Sage Sorcerer and Shadow Assassin? All other advanced class colors match for Imperial and Pubs.
this is
Good
those
question.
little identifiers in PvP that you worry about. Yeah, it irritates the pisser out of me. Which is why I don't play on the Imperial site, because I just get too confused.
There's one reason.
And so, are sages OP right now, or is it just a coincidence that 8 out of 16 people in a war zone are sages?
Good, clearly coincidence. Surely.
Right. I've seen
know,
a lot
actually-
of sages, though.
I was
A lot
thinking
of power,
about this.
A lot of power techs, too.
I was thinking about this, and of course there's a certain degree of lemming mob mentality, which you definitely see throughout the game, but this is the first time, I think, that sages have been both quite viable as healers and DPS in the game. So
Right.
you could see a larger population for the class, just because no matter how they want to play it, it's actually working pretty well.
Fair enough, yep. Let's see. Chinook, as well as Damon Homer on Facebook. It's a Star Wars Humble Bundle. And that's www.humblebundle.com. Pay what you want and make a charitable contribution.
So it's the latest Humble Bundle. This one's Star Wars themed, a lot of games. It includes KOTOR and KOTOR 2, Dark Forces. That's probably one of the originals that I loved to play to death back when computers were a lot simpler, as were graphics. Jedi Academy, Battlefront 2, Republic Commando, Empire at War, that's a gold pack, and The Force Unleashed and its sequel. Now, I actually owned all of these except for Force Unleashed, but I bought it anyway because you can get this whole bundle if you pay you pay what you want, but if you pay $12 or more, you actually unlock Force Unleashed and the sequel. So that's what I did. $12, and you get all of these and perhaps some more as well if they do add them. And it does go to charity, so why not if you want to pick up these games? You get Steam codes, so you do have to.
Yes, they're all Steam redeemable.
Mhm.
Making
That's
a
cool.
Steam account is free, though, so...
Yes. And that is the way you get games these days on PC.
That's how I do it.
All right, Jason R. wrote in, I just soloed the Maelstrom flashpoint and saw that the prisoner was Revan. I haven't played through any of the new content yet, but does this flashpoint sync up with SOR, with Shadow of Revan?
You could say that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are definitely laying groundwork.
If you really want to know, listen to our spoiler cast where we go into this in painful detail. But in other words, yes. Yes, it does.
Excuse me. Still clearing out the old lungs. Jason Willis wrote, I just got a Logitech G602 mouse. I have never used keybinds on mice or keyboards ever, so how should I set it up so I can learn to use both and get a little better at playing? And will I be able to do it on high-level tunes, or is it best to start on a new tune? Also, could you give a little insight on a good way to do it for Galactic Starfighter as well as the ground stuff?
Well, I'd certainly suggest you can do it with a max level character. I know I have changed my keybands completely around and sort of relearned it. But starting from the beginning is always easier. If you can actually don't mind doing that, it'll just take a while.
Somewhere on the OotiniCast.com website, we have some of our UI layouts, which I would actually recommend a UI layout that helps you visually understand what your keybinds are, to your visual reference. Just because that helped me a lot in the transition, particularly. I've always used keyboard keybinds, but when I shifted half of them onto my mouse, that was a huge help putting that visual distinction.
Right.
The other thing I would say is don't quit. As soon as you set the whole thing up, just commit. It'll take you probably a couple of weeks to even feel comfortable with it. It's going to feel like crap at first. Just don't give up.
Right, yeah. If you give yourself an out, you might well find yourself taking it, so try not to give yourself an out. Just stick with it. As far as the UI, you can kind of lay it out. It's been suggested here before. It's been a while, though, where you actually make the physical buttons on the screen map up with whatever the mouse has. So if your mouse has 3x4 layout, you set up something on your screen with 3x4 layout so that you can actually see exact. So it sort of helps your brain track. Okay, that's the lower left button. That's the upper right button or whatever.
As far as GSF goes, when I was playing it, I don't recall doing anything special. I mean, it's a completely different set of keybinds with its own tab for setting them up. But otherwise, I think I use more mouse commands than keybinds, but it's really your own personal preference. It should work pretty much the same way.
Mm-hmm. All right. And was this next bit also from Jason Willis to you? All right.
Yep.
Jason Willis also says, double-click the hotkey, and it will cast centered on whoever you have targeted. No more complete misses for me. It's #littlethings. Yeah, this got changed a little while ago, and it's really handy for those ground-based AoE abilities.
And passing the hut ball, don't forget.
And passing the hut ball, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. If you just
one of the best quality of life changes they ever made.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome. Just goes right on your middle of your target.
Yes.
And for getting your your AoE targets stuck on your mouse as you scroll around the screen was introduced during that, which drives me nuts as healing.
It does. All right. Yep.
You can remove it if you want. It's actually an option.
No, if you take it off, it still happens where the thing still sticks to your mouse for some reason. I have no idea why it does
really?
that.
If you cast another ability, it disappears, doesn't it? I know
does.
I find myself clicking to get rid of it, but you just cast something and it's fine.
But if you're a clicker, sometimes it's a pain in the butt.
Well, there's a solution to that, Kuzay.
I'm not changing now. I'm too old for that shit.
All right. Stefano writes, what program do you guys use when you're recording people who aren't in the same room?
We go into detail about this in our episode 100, where we talk through the full production process. Quick answer is we each use Audacity to record our own audio tracks, which I then mix together later. Once everyone uploads it, I download them using Adobe Audition. As it turns out, you could use Audacity for that as well. But yeah, Audacity is a quick answer.
Yep. And our interviews are generally done via recording a Skype interview.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Televangelist writes in, anything yet on the return of 12 times experience?
This is so sad. This was one of the questions that Werrett asked when he did his Reddit Q&A. And they gave this really ambiguous answer. The overwhelmingly positive response we got from the class story leveling event demonstrates just how much people want to focus on their personal story. We talk more about what that means later this year. So that pretty much means that they're just doing story stuff this year. No mention in there about 12 times XP. Now, in the Reddit thread about this, we got Sergeant Slidelock said he was also at the cantina, asked her specifically after the official part was over. Response was pretty much that they had no plans right now to bring back 12 times XP. They didn't like the fact that people skipped over so much content and ended up far behind on gear. They said that if they did bring it back, they would like to implement ways to fix this. This is a bit of a change.
It would be a change of tone.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. The way that they've implemented, they were talking about perhaps some kind of legacy tie-in, and the fact that everything that's in that legacy is cartel unlockable regardless of your legacy level. Seems to me that they simply did not want somebody to be able to buy this game and immediately spend $5 to permanently unlock 12 times XP and never see so much of what's been developed in the game. There needs to be some mechanic where they have to do it at least once on each faction just to see it.
Right.
It's good. It may not be tremendously repeatable, but it's good to see it once. So I could see them definitely standing behind that policy. They don't want all of that to be wasted money.
Well, I think
Exactly,
the gear thing is a lame excuse, to be honest. You should be able to manage your gear. I survived by buying green items off the GTN the whole time during, and I leveled like 7 or 8 tunes to 55, pretty much from scratch, and did it with just green gear, which is just fine. I think that if they bring it back again, that it maybe should be for a shorter period, so where people can't, fit in so many characters at one time. Maybe, just the normal time, maybe a weekend or something like that, or just bring it back once a year to give people a chance to catch up on all their alts. Should it be something like they do all the time with the double XP? But they should definitely bring it back. I don't see why they wouldn't. The gear is a lame excuse.
That's what Dexen54 suggested.
Right.
Just for a weekend.
I would suggest tie it in with your legacy level. I mean, people who have legacy level 50, they've seen the content, so they can probably get the 12-time experience and not really be missing anything.
That's something
Or
Marshall
if you have a
suggested on the usual
legacy
podcast.
number. Yeah, if you have a lower legacy number, then you haven't seen as much, quite frankly, and therefore maybe you have 3 by experience or 4 by experience.
Legacy level 50, one-time buy per year, level of, or so many characters or something like that. That would be nice.
We'll see. We'll see.
I'm glad I've already done all of the advanced classes.
I must be the only person who actually wants to level this the old-fashioned way, because I'm looking forward to doing my Shadow
If I
again.
ever do it, that's exactly how I want to do it. Flat out.
You guys are lame.
Well, yeah. Maybe. I actually like PvP though, and I like GSF, and I know a lot of people think that's lame too. So
Leveling's fine, but I do like the whole aspect of being able to see the story continuous, within a period of a week or so or a few days.
Yeah,
That was
actually
really nice to do that.
that's how I did my Vanguard after leveling to 55 via GSF.
And then picking an advanced class?
Yeah, eventually.
Did you want to go over the GXUN 54?
I covered that.
Okay. Chong wrote in, I didn't know that Cathar eyes glowed a little. And he has a nice little screenshot. Certainly seems like they do.
There's something in the patch notes about a bright eyes option. I wonder if that's it. And they actually glow. Dunno. There you go.
All right. Also, he writes, hot off the PTS via Reddit
That's not
user.
Chong. Sorry.
Oh, that's not Chong? Oh, okay, sorry. Hot off the PTS via Reddit user HoHowl, we have a new species for characters. Yeah, set up for Jawas.
It's a
Imperial
fantastic
Agent
screenshot.
Jawa.
Yep.
That would be funny.
Showing the character selection screen with a Jawa as an option under your select species. some pretty amazing Photoshop skills here. So
Yeah, that took some work right there.
yeah, impressive, very impressive. So yes, it is a joke. Just to be clear, but it's pretty funny.
That would have been a good April Fool's thing that BioWare could have interjected.
Yep.
And let's see, Brian of the Bad Feeling Podcast, the Hung customization 2,490 cartel coins.
What does the flavor?
Yes.
What does the flavor text say on there? Like the social ability and stuff? I can't read it.
Quickly,
Secrets of Trade provides allies with wisdom to be used in upcoming battles or something like that. I can't quite read it either.
Secretive and mysterious creatures. The Jawas are natives of Tatooine who are passionate scavengers seeking out technology for sale or trade. Social ability. Secrets of Trade provides allies with wisdom to be used in upcoming battles. It's pretty cute.
Cool.
Yeah. Nice work, Ho-Hal.
Build 3.4.51.
And finally, Kuzo, you have a plan for the slot machines?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'll cover it. I'll summarize it a little bit more than what I had wrote in. Basically, I think the BioWare should have took a little more time in developing the slot machines. Sorry, I'm a little recovering from sickness a little bit too. Anyways, they should have took a little more time in developing the slot machines. I think it seemed fast. I don't know how long they were actually trying to develop it, but it seemed a little fast. But I think that it was broke in the beginning when they released it, and it's broke now after they fixed it. And I think they really should have based it off of the rewards that are given and maybe expanded on it just a little bit more. So currently on the slot machines that they have now, there's only really 3 options. Either the void area, which is a loss, and then there's a shadowed area, which is just a normal win, and then there's the jackpot triangle zone that you see on the machine. I think that they should have added another area, another option for winning. So basically it would have been loss, maybe a lesser reward, and a medium reward, and then jackpot. Before you were winning, you wouldn't hit jackpot that often, but when you did, coins would come out and it seemed special. And you were winning too much stuff, I think. And after they fixed it, they turned around and it seems like you're either losing or you're hitting jackpot, which kind of takes away from the effect of winning a jackpot. So you're hitting jackpot all the time, coins are coming out, whatever else. It just seems, I don't know, it's not very fun. So basically, I did a real quick paint job and sent it over to TO of adding in those extra areas for basically a different reward. So there's 4 options now, either a loss, a lesser reward, a medium reward, and jackpot. And not going into the ratios because BioWare can basically develop those ratios, but really this gives them more room to spread the ratios out. And what I come up with is basically for the lesser reward you would get contraband chips and either the green reputation or the green crafting token. For the medium reward you would get the contraband chips times 2, the blue reputation and the blue crafting token, and then possibly they can add in like just a pet out of that shipment that came with that machine's representative pack. And for the jackpot, of course, they can add in the purple reputation item, the purple crafting token, their certificate, maybe a mount. It doesn't have to be the best mount out of the pack, but just one of the non-rare mounts out of that pack, and also the walker they can put on a extremely rare, like they have it now. But it would broaden the slot machine to where it was more fun for it was fun for people to actually use in a stronghold, opposed to what it is now. It was abused to begin with, and now it's not being used at all. And really, I think that if they spent a little time on it, they could probably make it something to where people would have a good time actually using their stronghold, and it would bring other people into your stronghold to visit if you didn't have one, and keep the community a little bit more together than it is now. But I like it. I think Tio probably put it in the show notes, and you can see it there. We'll run up.
Yeah, that makes sense, because when I was trying out the slot machine this week, it was basically 80% of the time it was giving the big explosion, and yet it
Right.
was just all it was crappy rep gear. 99.5% of the time, and yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
the jackpot becomes lackluster. Oh, I hit the jackpot again.
Yeah.
So I think they should make that a little more rare of a hit and add in the other zone for you to actually to hit upon.
I like it.
Honestly, if they had just taken all the Java junk off of the machine entirely, left everything else as it was, and add those walkers, I'd have been happy.
All right.
All right, and Red, what do we have from the chat rooms?
No questions this week.
Okay. All right, so let's get on to the Sarlacc Digest, where we go over the issues for 1,000 years, or until we run out of time. And we're going to go over the hard mode flashpoints, right, Gio?
Yes, indeed. There was a thread started by a Reddit user, account9726, amazing name, where he listed out the strategies for doing all of the hard mode flashpoints, all 4 that are currently available. As we know, there will be 2 new ones coming next week in Game Update 3.1, but there are other ones that are currently in the game. This will probably be too late for most of you, given we've all pretty much worked it out, but that's fine because it's more fun that way. So let's just quickly go through them. We can just throw in our own bits and pieces. This will be quite quick because none of these are actually quite complicated. He does a general note: some trash encounters are significantly tougher. You will need to be aware and use your abilities. Ask your group to use target designators, the raid markers, for pre-combat crowd control (CCs). And in fight, make sure you use your combat stuns, interrupts, and the like, particularly on healers. Have the DPS concentrate on single foes together and prioritize killing standards before silvers and before golds, unless there are some exceptions to that. But that's standard operating procedure for flashpoints, as long as you're not just base rolling. Make sure the DPS take out the weaks or the standards, and silvers and golds are usually for the tank to keep busy, with a few exceptions. Okay, so running through them all. And they are pretty much the same between Republic and Empire. Caravan Incursion. The trash. There's a few nasty pulls. Well, it's not really nasty. The bit where you go up the elevator after the first boss, there is a huge group of... they're all weaks, but they're all standing fairly far apart in the tactical. There's a whole lot of canisters you can click on to make them explode. That just wipes them out. Those aren't there in hard mode. So a good way of doing this is line of sighting. There is a convenient wall, your tank can aggro them, and everyone else will move behind the wall, especially your healer, and then all the ads will run over because they can't shoot at you otherwise, and you can just AoE them down. If you try and do it out in the open, you'll probably lose your healer. That's happened to me a couple of times. So... and also, when you're about to enter the Sith Academy, when you go in there, that is a nasty, nasty pull, and line of sighting for that can help as well. The group stays back, the tank hits whoever's standing out there in the open, and that will force the mobs to come to you. You can usually deal with them one at a time rather than them jumping in and wiping out your healer again. My poor healer has died too many times. Alright, the bosses, there's just the 3. The first one is one where it's Master Rilmar or Lord Renning. There are these electrified cages, like 3 of them I think, with yellow electrical screens or some sort of force field. If the tank gets knocked back into them, they're insta-killed. So, and that has happened to me when I've been tanking it. So, easy. Just make sure the tank's positions their back so they're not facing, so that when they're knocked back, they hit into a cage. That's pretty much it. If you don't mess that up, it's easy. I think there are some ads, but they're easy enough to take care of. The next one is the R9XR or the i5T1, the big droid, basically. There are some ads that will turn up occasionally. You just make sure that they'll go for the healer, as they always do. The healer can run to the boss. He's the guy that will put out the big circle, which you've got to get out of, and the various bombs or mines that get dropped, so just don't stand in them. There is a timer that if the fight goes on long enough, he goes into this kind of extermination mode. It's like an enrage, and I wouldn't say it's impossible to heal through, but it really sucks for the healer. It's tough. If your DPS is too low, you will hit that. If your DPS is competent, you won't ever see it. So that's usually an indication your DPS are big crap. Yeah, so if you can't heal through that, don't worry too much about it. It really is hard. And finally, final boss, Commander Jensen or Darth Soveros. This one's pretty easy. The only thing to worry about is the droids, the suicide droids that will come and stand on someone. And if you stand in the red circle, you will die. The other thing that happens in there is there's a different type of droid that will grab someone and will basically stun them. And the DPS has to actually burn that droid down to free them. So if that's your healer who's been stunned, don't just keep DPSing the boss, because eventually your tank will die and bad things will happen. So just make sure you're aware of that and take out the droid. So that's Korriban Incursion. Pretty easy overall. The bonus boss... these notes don't include the bonus bosses, because at the time the guide was written, the bonus boss didn't drop anything worthwhile. Bonus boss in Korriban Incursion, you actually have to go back. He's up near the place we have the conversation, sort of on the top of that plateau before you sort of jump down to do the head towards the academy and the droid boss. So you will have to go back to that. It's pretty easy. He's got a big knockback. There's some damaging ability he does that seems to sap a bunch of health from everyone. There is a frontal cleave, if I remember correctly. Overall, easy fight. As long as your tank isn't positioned so that they get knocked off the balcony and insta-killed. Pretty funny. So, yeah, don't let that happen. But otherwise, easy fight. Okay, next. Attack on Tython. Yeah, trash is all pretty easy. First fight, Major Imos, Major Travik. Which one was this? I'm blanking on it. Oh, of course. Of course. How could I forget this? This is the one that was bugged on the Republic side. The strat he suggests is to move to the anti-aircraft gun off to the side, but really, this is where 4 droids come down. Talked about this before. They all each have shields on them to break them. Each member of the party stands on those droids when they come down, waits for the volley, so you get to see the yellow circle, I think it is, underneath you, then move out of it. The volley comes down, breaks the shields, you DPS down the droids. Tank should pick up the droid that's on the healer, as well as your own, and rinse and repeat. It's actually pretty easy. The alternative strategy is to run off behind that turret, as long as you've cleared the trash to get there. Wait for the shields to drop, just make sure you get back into combat just before the shields come off, and do it that way. It takes forever. It's much easier if you can do it the proper way. The next one is next boss fight.
It's good to know the real version of that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's actually fun, and if your group knows what they're doing, it's easy. And don't stand in bad. That's just a general thing. Don't stand in bad.
Right.
Next fight, second encounter, Master Liam Dentiri or Lieutenant Crescent. He reckons it's the hardest fight. The only thing the healer needs to know is when the boss comes out of stealth, he will put a debuff on someone, the stab. It's actually an animation where you can actually see him stabbing someone. You just need to cleanse that. If you don't cleanse that, they'll probably die. So, yeah, cleanse that. That's pretty much it. Otherwise, he'll go into stealth, ads will appear, there's different groups. Just be aware. You should be okay. The tank just has to pick them up when they come. If your DPS is a bit low, this fight can drag on forever. Yeah, I've had that happen. But otherwise, it's really pretty straightforward. And final fight, again, it's pretty easy to get in there. Just a quick trick. When you go inside the Jedi Academy, when you just go inside the door, there's all these groups of ads that come out. They're just normals. Jackie Chan style, just attacking you, cut pair, then another pair, and then another pair. If you slip around the corner to the left and jump onto the balcony of the stairs and go up the stairs, you can skip that entirely. So as long as the whole group is careful, you can it's just a waste of time. So you can just get past that. Anyway, final boss, Master Auric Tralles, or Lord Go. Chain Lightning is now a knockback and high damage attack when melee DPS need to watch out for. So when he's casting it, the melee is supposed to move away. I didn't know this. you just heal through it because the melee probably won't. But yeah, also purple circles. They will fall. Rocks will fall. They indicate where the rocks are going to fall. Move out of those, obviously. There's also a phase where it goes immune, and there are the purple circles chasing everyone.
Yeah.
Usual advice with this is don't run around like a headless chook. Wait for the purple circle. Move a little bit. Wait for the next one. Move a little bit.
Right.
Makes it easier. Bonus boss in here. He's actually outside the academy, off near one of the turrets that you have to clear before you get there. He's a joke. We did this cold and just one-shot it. There was nothing there. It was nothing special. Maybe he had a special ability, but I didn't notice.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's easy enough. With all the bonus bosses, they're not just standing there. There's usually some prerequisite, something you have to do. Usually kill a bunch of whatever. So if you're skipping too much trash, you may not have actually triggered the condition to activate the bonus boss. They appear as a quest marker on your map, so you can actually see where they are. Which is why it's so hard to find the one in Korriban Incursion because it was way back somewhere else. But yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on that? All right, we're nearly through. Have no fear. Next is Manan, Depths of Manan. Probably a personal favorite, though it is actually kind of hard in some ways. The trash.
Story mode is not a total, knockover.
Yeah, among the hard modes, it is probably the hardest in terms of the fights, relatively speaking. The rest are all pretty trivial, especially Ricarda, but anyway. Okay, trash, there are medics. Always keep your eye out for anyone who can heal. There's also healing droids. Take them out first, stun them, kill them, whatever. Usually you focus them down. There's also some silvers in here, which are actually kind of nasty. Snipers, make sure you burn them. And there are groups where they come from behind, so the tank's got to watch out for that. That's about halfway through. Be aware of that before you get to the flow boss. Okay. First boss, Sarisi. The droids. This is the guy who goes around doing his pop, 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 pop with his gun all the time.
Okay.
Firstly, make sure everyone's in the room before you activate, because a wall comes up and you can lock people out. So just make sure everyone's inside. Right. There are two droids as well, which have shields on themselves and which they are projecting onto the boss. If you do enough damage to them when they've got their shields on the boss, the shield will transfer back to them. But these are not synced. So the idea is you do damage to both droids simultaneously, so 1 DPS on each, assuming the DPS is relatively balanced. The shields will both transfer off the boss at the same time. You will DPS the boss while he hasn't got a shield. The shield will come back on. Rinse and repeat. If your DPS do this right, this is a very quick fight, and the one we did the other night, your DPS did this beautifully. If your DPS don't know what the hell they're doing, they're not target switching, they're just shooting the boss while he's got his shield up, this fight can go on for like 20 minutes. It's beautiful. So, yeah. DPS. Pick one, usually put a target marker on it. The other DPS will attack the other droid. When the shields are off both, when the shields come onto both, off the boss, switch to the boss. DPS the boss, and then back to the droids.
Right.
Easy fight, but and for the tank, you are being knocked around, you are being knocked down. It is horrible to tank. Honestly, it's a pain in the ass. Healing, pretty easy, honestly.
So is there really much of a difference between... That sounds exactly like story mode.
In story mode, once you've got the shields off the boss onto the droids, they stay off. In hard mode, they will come back on, which means if you get out of sync, your shields, there's always going to be one shield or the other on the boss, and you're never going to get any damage on him, and you're continually trying to get the shield off one droid or the other.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just terrible.
I can see why that could be a little harder. Okay.
Yep. The bonus boss is just before you get to Ortino, who's the flow boss. I talked about him in my intro. He's the one with the droids where you have to... It's like Frogger, kind of, or something where you have to... A simple mini-game where you have to move between the circles as those droids are coming down and you're fighting the boss. Awesome fun. I think it's the best fight in the hard modes at the moment in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is just cool. But anyway, Ortino, he's the boss where he's spraying you with the bodily fluids. The puddles appear under the king's feet. It's quite disgusting.
I saw that one time.
Yeah.
On the internet.
Something the a pug told us was that the debuff that the puddles put on you to make you take more damage. We thought that was from the boss's attack, but he reckoned it didn't actually do anything. It was only the big lightning thing when he does his double flow thing. So you can ignore it. In theory, you can stand anywhere. He does have a frontal cleave, so the tank should be facing them away. The idea is for the group to be standing with the tank, including the healer and all DPS. Stand with the tank. The puddles are appearing underneath you. He does a mass project at the end where he puts a puddle under everyone. And so like one end of the room is filled up with water. All of those puddles will double in size, and then he will cast the ability that will make lightning come down. I think it's... And if you're caught in that, you will insta-die. So as soon as he casts mass project, run to the other end of the room. Stick together for heals. Wait for the lightning. Go back. Rinse and repeat. There will be ads that appear. They must be taken down, otherwise they'll nuke your healer. But otherwise it's fairly simple. Though we've wiped in there a few times, but yeah. Assuming everyone does everything right, it's good. If you're range DPS, don't stand up the other end of the room, or you just make things messy. And finally, the final fight. This one's actually a bit rough. Stivaston. So firstly,
this is a fire guy, right?
yeah, this is the big room where you've only got a certain amount of time before the whole facility collapses, and you've got to burn him down in like 4 minutes or whatever it is.
Right.
Firstly, if you're a Jedi, if you're a Knight or a Jug tank, don't jump in. Otherwise, he'll immediately knock you back. If you can either get a DPS to pull and then you pull off him, or saber throw. Either way, you'll be able to hold him. He will continually knock you back and do a threat drop, and you won't be able to get him back for like 10 seconds. He will come back to you if you're highest on threat. Of course, you can taunt. So just be aware of that. You won't be able to do much damage until these the pipe around the outside it will become damaged, and there'll be a fire circle. And the idea is that you drag him into the fire. You can then do extra damage, or a lot more damage. There will also be ads that appear. The ads, don't try and DPS them, kite them into the fire. So they'll usually come to the healer if no one's touched them. Healer stands in the fire that's coming down from the ceiling. Just let the fire kill the ads. If there's no fire up, and there isn't always, there are periods where there isn't, the healer just kites them around as best they can. And the tank can actually slow them. For example, if you're a guardian, you could do that.
Okay, so is it a pretty tight timer on this one, like it was on story mode?
If your DPS is crap, you will have a problem. You do want to have him under the fire as much as possible, so you can do as much damage, but then you should be okay.
Okay.
Again, competent DPS, no problem at all. If you're struggling, you will hit the enrage. So if you're all in 1A6 gear, your DPS breathing, you have to know what they're doing, and the tank must get them into the fire as quickly as possible to ensure maximum uptime on the damage. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, another fun fight.
And it looks like the recommendation here is that the fire isn't really a big deal still. You can still stand in it as a DPSer or a healer.
Yeah, you do accumulate stacks that do apparently more and more damage over time. I never really noticed that. There are Colto stations around the room which you can click on if you really want to clear those stacks. In fact, I think they clear it for everyone. We didn't bother. It doesn't really make that much difference, certainly for healing or anything else.
All right.
And finally, last hard mode is Rakata Prime, or Legacy of the Rakata on Rakata Prime. This is clearly the easiest. Well, at least whenever it comes up in Group Finder, it's not really a problem. It's like, oh yeah, this will be a fairly quick one. Though it does take a while to get through. Your trash packs is often a gold healer. Make sure you take care of them because they do actually do a lot of healing. Stuns, they can be crowd controlled as long as your DPS doesn't break it. Yeah, that kind of thing. There's also these assault droids as you get further in that I think they put a debuff on the tank that can really, I think it's an armor reduction or something. It's nasty. Yeah. Alright, the actual bosses. The first one, this is the room. Well, it's a kind of area blocked off by metal wall things. That's where you got the Rancor to start, and then the Handler jumps in as well. the idea is the tank tanks the Rancor, the DPS do the guy, and then you burn down the Rancor last.
Okay.
The guy will be throwing fire on people and also putting a debuff on them which will root them in place. If you have a self-cleanse, use your self-cleanse. They come up often enough that your healer can actually get out of sync and won't be able to cleanse it off you. So if you cleanse it off yourself, definitely do that.
Okay. Will CC Breaker
Otherwise-
let you move
Yes.
out of it?
It will
Okay.
indeed, but only every 2 minutes. So
Right.
use your self-cleanse if you can.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's really trivial. The boss does a knock side to side and also over his shoulder throw, so you can find yourself being thrown through the air. If you're a sentinel, if you're a guardian or a jug, you can actually jump back to him when you're in the air, which is one of my favourite moves when tanking that. He knocks you in the air, you jump from the air, you land straight back at him. Very cool.
Okay. Cool.
Second boss, this is the guy where there's a group of ads, you DPS them down, the boss then becomes active, and then several times through the fight, it's timer based, not health based. He'll go immune, go up in the air, I think some sort of bounty hunter or something, and then another group of ads. Whole lot of weaks will appear. They'll tend to home in on your healer. There are red circles that appear, which is AoE damage. They don't actually hit that hard. I found the best strategy for that as a healer is just to, as a sage anyway, or as a sork anyway, is to just stand still, wait for them to come to me, and then do lightning storm and just burn them down. The DPS are helping as well, and they just go down. Standing in the red circles, don't worry about it. You take barely any damage, just ignore it, and just burn them down.
All right.
And the tank just has to keep the boss faced away from the group. Easy. And final fight in there is the bonus boss. There are ads. There's a vase you can hide behind in the room that will stop you getting hit by the AoE damage he does periodically. Pretty easy fight. I think you can run outside as well, but use the vase. When you go in the room, to the left, there's a vase there. So when he does its ability, it's pretty obvious when he's doing it. Get behind the vase. You'll be fine. And kill the ads if they turn up. But yeah, the bonus boss is otherwise pretty straightforward as well. Final fight. Darth Arcus and Colonel Darroch. This one is again easy. The tank should pick up Arcus, the one who's doing the lightning and stuff, facing him away from the group, and the group should focus down Darroch. Now the reason for that is actually a bug. Now I've talked about this previously. This is where a blue circle will appear under you, under a player, or under Jakaro, who is there and will help you. If the blue circles overlap, you will die. I don't think Jakaro will, unfortunately, because that would make things a lot easier, but no, he doesn't. But the players certainly can get insta-killed by that. Now, normally you'll just keep apart, but what happens is Jakaro is on Darroch, you have the blue circle, he has the blue circle, you get grappled in, you both die. Now, Icebergy on the official forums found a workaround for this. So if Jakaro does have the blue circle, what you have to do is stand at the edge of melee range with Darroch, you will not get pulled in. So that means that all the...
Okay.
Yeah, so as soon as you get the blue circle, when he has it, that's what you do. Move to the edge of melee range to avoid the pull in. You should be fine. So I'll try that next time. But otherwise, just burn down Darroch, take him out of the equation so there's no more grapple. And then just burn down Arcus, and otherwise it's trivial fight. And
So
that's
if Jakaro's on one side of the boss and then you're on the edge of melee range on the other side of the boss, does that actually make it pretty easy to avoid the problem?
if you're at the... As long as... You mean so you can keep doing melee damage?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think so. Yeah.
Well,
'Cause
he pulls you in. So if he pulls you in and you have it at the same time as Jakaro, because I've been pulled in before, because I think he has a pull ability, so yeah. It
But if you
doesn't
are
matter where
standing
you're at.
If you're still in melee range but on the other side, and that apparently will prevent you from being pulled in. Maybe you do have to be just outside melee range. Don't know. We'll have to experiment
Yeah,
with
what's
that.
considered melee range at that point?
Yeah.
Is it his melee range or yours? I mean...
But yeah, otherwise, I actually enjoy doing all these hard modes. They're actually a lot of fun. They were challenging at first. As you get more gear, obviously, they get easier. But once you know what you're doing, they're all comfortably challenging. A little too challenging if your DPS is a bit crap. But
Which one's your favorite?
Manan. Definitely Manan. What about yours, Red? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I like Manon the best. I'm not sure about for the bonus boss, but we didn't cover those, so.
Yeah, Manan bonus boss is definitely my favorite out of the four. It's the only one that's even vaguely, properly challenging. And it's just a fun fight. Chill or Kuzay, do you guys have favorites?
Well, as a DPSer, I haven't been able to get a lot of pops for hard modes, but I'm a fan of Manon, at least on story mode, so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would have to say Manon as well. Tython is nice because it's pretty fast. Manon is aesthetically pleasing, and the fights are a little bit, I don't want to say more challenging, maybe different. Each fight is a little bit different, so maybe for that aspect, but probably Tython more so, I guess, because it's faster.
Alright, so those are the hard modes, and next week we'll have the new ones, and we'll talk about those as soon as we've done them ourselves, and the bonus bosses, which we don't know anything about because they'll be brand new, and I didn't do them on the PTS. Yeah, so that should be good fun. Looking forward to adding a couple of new ones to the rotation.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, that's a show. If you'd like to play with us in the Utini Knights Guild on the Republic side of the Harbinger server, or in our Guild on the Empire side, do a /C join Utini to join the Utini channel. Then ask for the quiz that lets us know you're a fan of the show. You can email questions and comments about the show to OotiniCast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter using @OotiniCast. You can find contact details for all of us on our website, OotiniCast.com, which includes how to subscribe to us using iTunes, Stitcher, and the rest. We record the show live every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Go to OotiniCast.com/live to find out how to join in. Our theme song is from Mevio's Music Alley. Check it out at music.mevio.com. That's MEVIO. And thank you to the chat room, and thank you, Kuze and Red.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you next week.
Alright guys, keep recording. We'll sign off the... Oh, Kuze, do you want to do a Utini Rage? Because I don't actually have one.
Yeah,
I was
sure.
wondering if you had
I'll do it. I was going to type in who's going to do it, but I didn't get a chance to do that.
So,
but I'll do it. Now?
Yeah.
I gotta prepare, you know.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just do a normal. I'll just do a normal one. Utini Rage!
Oh, that was good. Alright, keep recording. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back next week. There may even be an extra interview or something here. So, yep. Take it easy, guys.